So I have been working for about, I think, 15 years now over one main issue in the south of Venezuela, in an area called Canaima National Park. It's very famous because of Tepuy, the Table Mountains, and the Angel Falls. It's the very tallest waterfall in the country, in the world. And this area is, the landscape is a savanna forest mosaic. And there's great controversy of how this landscape was formed. People that don't belong to this place, when they get there, they view the landscape and they think that it's been turned into savanna, largely by Aboriginal fires. And there's been a long struggle trying to prevent the Pemon indigenous peoples, who are the ancestral inhabitants of this place, to stop using fire, with the belief that it's going to reduce the forest cover of the park, which actually is considered of great importance to the country because it's the watershed that eventually protects all the water that ends up in the Guri Dam, which is 300 kilometers downstream, and it provides 70% of the electricity of the country. So the struggle there is between indigenous peoples' livelihood practices and national interests to provide electricity to the country. The type of conflicts that I work with have to do with knowledge systems and how different knowledge systems become established as narratives. And this has huge historical roots from the way colonial readings of the landscape that are imposed in other parts of the world. So the real complex root of these type of conflicts is that, of these injustices, is that we have to change the way that people perceive the environment. And this has to do with a type of power that sometimes is not really clearly visible, is the way that narratives are constructed in people's imaginaries and become established. And they're even assumed as such by indigenous peoples themselves. So what is happening is that young Pemon indigenous peoples have started to absorb this view that comes from the outside of the environment, and then they themselves reproduce this view of fire as a negative phenomenon or a negative tool for use of nature. And this view is also deeply becomes entrenched in academics and scientists, and this is a very complicated route to a cause of injustice to unveil, because you have to start reconstructing how views of the environment first become established and then how they just ingrained in institutional practices and in people's imaginaries and views of nature. And that's where, in a way, we as academics have an important part to play in this, because it's not easy to prove where the root of these type of injustices are. My role in my institution, where I work in Venezuela, we carry out applied research. It's a bit of a practical angle to social research. It's what's known as action research, really. And we try to help indigenous peoples themselves do their own research to help them clarify and help them be in a more powerful position to engage in dialogue with other actors that are actually, in a way, imposing their views on them. So what I've been doing is helping to do research with the Pemon over their views and knowledge of fire. And through helping them clarify their views, basically putting young Pemon with elders to do research on how fire is used, what are the techniques for preventing large fires, what is the role of fire in fire prevention. We are trying to make young people and elders see their differences. Once their differences are clarified, to help them engage in dialogue, to understand where their own misunderstandings can come from. And once that internal dialogue takes place, then indigenous peoples feel more confident to and engage in dialogue about the uses of fire with other actors, with academics, with resource managers. So that's the type of research that I carried out and other colleagues have been carrying out in the area. We are now we started working about 5 years ago with ecologists that are also doing research in ecological studies of fire regimes and fire behavior in savanna ecosystems, and contrasting what comes from the ecological knowledge with what comes from the ancestral viewpoints of uses of fire. And quite interestingly, they speak to each other quite well, ancestral fire management techniques with what comes from ecological studies of fire behavior. What has come out from ecological studies is that it shows that in this particular savannas, the fire reproduces to a certain extent the landscape and the mosaic that the Pemon are trying to create through their savanna patch burning. What needs to happen is for more support coming from different directions, I would say, to strengthen the capacity from indigenous peoples, local actors, to make their views, their voices reach points where injustices can actually be dealt with and respected. So a just future would look like, to me, as a future in which indigenous peoples can have the opportunity to think about the future, to think about themselves, but rooted in their identity.